Hi everyone, my name is Shaki Bell. I am an artist, multi-passionate creative, and spiritual guide. I've been thinking a lot about the different seasons of life that we move through. And I believe that sometimes we make ourselves suffer more than we need to because we believe that we need to be somewhere else other than where we are at this moment. And I think that's really interesting because if you look at nature, there's nothing in nature that is expected to bloom the entire year, and seasons as well, where from the outside it looks like there's absolutely nothing happening. However, ironically, when it comes to ourselves, we're so quick to assume that if we're not constantly moving in a forward way and if it's not visible as well, then something is wrong. So, because of this, I wanted to talk about the importance of understanding what season you're in and how the elements can actually give us a really interesting framework for understanding the different energies that may be present in our lives. I also want to discuss the shadow sides of these energies, or the negative aspects of these energies, because there are some. I think we tend to romanticize certain states of being without considering what might happen if we stay in these energies for too long. But before I do get into that, I actually wanted to share what inspired me to create this video and talk more about it. A few weeks ago, I brought to life one of the biggest creative visions I have ever had thus far. The entire experience was actually inspired by the five elements. So, earth, water, air, fire, and ether. We had different creative and wellness experiences that people could move through throughout the night, each one representing one of the elements. It was super fun to see. So for earth, people created dry flower bouquets. Water was represented through watercolor painting. Air was connected to journaling, reflecting, and really using your throat chakra to express yourself. And fire, fire had its own herbal ritual. So people got together and actually created some herbal joints, which was really cool, or herbal pre rolls, I should say. Obviously, I created the event because I wanted people to come together and have a really beautiful experience, one that they have truly never had before. I wanted people to walk into a place and feel like they could be all things. They could be curious, reflective, creative, playful, and just fully themselves. But after the event, I really sat down and reflected why I was drawn to the elements in the first place. I started thinking about how much the elements can actually reflect so much about ourselves that we might not be aware of or that we might not be looking at. I realized that even during the process of creating the event, I found myself stepping through each of the elements. So, first was air, the ideas, the dreaming, the mood boards, the getting everything together, writing it down, really just thinking about what I want to do and getting excited about it, having my creative juices flow and using that as inspiration to step into the next element, which is fire. Fire is all about action. This is the moment, where I decided I'm going to do it. And fire starts with the first action that you take. So my first action that I took was getting people on my team, reaching out to others, letting them know, hey, I have this idea and I want you to help me out with it. Selling tickets, creating the flyers, creating the promo, and just keeping the action going, even when things became stressful, because things definitely became stressful. But fire and air alone would not have created the event, right? So I definitely needed that earth energy. And it's interesting with earth because earth is known as kind of rest, but in this case, I saw it as grounding, right? I needed to, you know, taking action was cool, coming up with ideas was cool, but there was also kind of the less exciting stuff. So, logistical stuff, budgets, the timeline, the sending out emails. And so I really thought of Earth as just sitting down and doing the less desirable tasks, but still needing those moments of grounding and rest. Doing the tasks that have just less energy to them, but are still very much needed in order to get to the next phase, which was water. I had to essentially adapt when things didn't go as planned. I also had to just let go of certain expectations. And sometimes I found myself having to allow the experience to be different than exactly what I visualized in my head, because that did happen a lot. So water was very important in this sense because I found myself flowing with the unfolding of the event, even when I, quite frankly, didn't have that in mind. And I think all of this applies so much more than to just creating an event, especially for us creative people and artists. Some of us love being in that air energy. Air is exciting. To be honest, I think air is probably one of my favorite ones, but air is my favorite because you're coming up with ideas. It's so much fun. You have so much possibility. There's so many different places you can go, but without actually taking action, then the idea will always just remain an idea. So it is important to have that fire action, and then it is important to have the earth, the grounding. It is important to have the water and to adapt and to learn how to adapt, especially during a project or something big that you're bringing to life. So after the event, I became inspired to go even deeper into this and discuss what it means to me and how it has helped me, and hopefully inspire you to do the same. I just became really inspired to show that the elements aren't just something that exists outside of us, they actually exist within us as well. And that is where the doshas come into play. If you're unfamiliar with Ayurveda, I'm going to describe this very simply because this isn't supposed to be an educational video about Ayurveda. There's so much that goes into Ayurveda. I really just want to cover the doshas. So, Ayurveda recognize 5 elements as mentioned before: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. These elements come together in 3 doshas. So Vata is connected to air and ether. Pitta is connected to fire and water. Kapha is connected to earth and water. Traditionally, this is a much deeper system than what I can cover in this video. So I'm definitely not trying to diagnose anybody or tell you what your constitution is. What I'm interested in doing today is just using these energies as mirrors. Instead of asking what am I forever, I want you to think about what energy has been dominating my life lately. What is the gift of that energy? And what happens if and when I get stuck in its shadow? Let's start with Vata. Vata is connected to air and ether. I think a lot of creatives, to be honest, will probably recognize themselves somewhere in this energy. As I stated before, it is my favorite one. I'm very Vata. I have so many ideas, and you might relate to that as well. So Vata is movement, it's ideas, it's possibility, it's change, it's curiosity, it's imagination. Maybe you might be in a season where everything is changing all at once, or you have so many ideas and you don't know which one to choose. There is something very exciting about Vata energy that I just love so much. You feel like you could really become anything in life or do anything in life. As stated, there are so many possibilities when it comes to Vata energy, but the shadow side of Vata is overwhelm, and this needs to be discussed more. This needs to be discussed more because it's cool to have a lot of ideas. It's cool to have a big imagination. It's cool to dream big, but at some point, something needs to be done. Sometimes having too many doors open can feel just as paralyzing as having no doors open. When Vata energy becomes overwhelming, we tend to get very scattered. We're consuming too much information. We're constantly inspired, but we're not actually creating. We start 10 projects and finish none. We keep looking for the next idea instead of grounding into the one we already have started. And sometimes we mistake movement for progress. So just because you're constantly thinking, planning, researching, and changing direction does not necessarily mean you are moving towards yourself. If this sounds like the season you are currently in, I would ask yourself, what idea or possibility deserves to be grounded before I can reach for another one? Oh, there's this quote I heard that I really like, and it's always stuck with me. You can't be pregnant. Just hear me out. You can't be pregnant with a 9 month old, a 3 month old, a 2 month old, and a 6 month old at the same time. You got to choose one. However, after you finish, you give birth to that idea, you can get pregnant again with another idea. So just because you are choosing one idea over the other or one project over the other does not mean you're abandoning the other one. So now we have Pitta. Pitta, I said before, it's fire and water. More like a tsunami type of water, water that has a lot of high energy. So Pitta, this is transformation, direction, ambition, focus, action, leadership. This is the energy of I know what I want and I'm going to go after it. There are definitely seasons of our lives where we need this energy. Sometimes we need to stop thinking about the thing and just actually do it. There comes a point where it's like, all right, like how many more mood boards do you need? You got it. Just take the first action. However, the shadow side of fire is burnout. It can be perfectionism, irritability, it can even be comparison. It's a feeling that no matter how much you accomplish, there's immediately something else that you need to do. And it's not always like that. I think something we need to remember, like when we're really in this fire energy, is that healing can become another form of productivity. When we're really in this Pitta fire energy, we tend to ask ourselves, why am I not over this yet? Why am I still triggered? Why do I still miss this person? Why haven't I figured my life out yet? Why am I not the healed version of myself yet? And then suddenly, even our inner work becomes another place where we don't feel good enough. We're trying to optimize ourselves instead of just experiencing ourselves. Fire does transform, but fire without care can also consume everything around it, including the person tending it. So if you are in a season of constantly doing, building, becoming, achieving, or trying to transform yourself, maybe the question is, what am I trying to force that might need patience instead of more effort? Next is Kapha. Kapha is earth and water. This energy is very grounding. It's stability, it's nourishment, it's patience, it's consistency, it's rest. There is so much beauty in this Kapha energy, especially in a culture and society that always tells us we need to be doing more. Sometimes you just need a season where your life becomes quieter, and that's okay. Sometimes the most important thing you're doing is creating safety within yourself. And sometimes you're building roots that nobody else can see and they don't need to see. A seed underground looks like nothing is happening, but that doesn't mean that nothing is happening. However, Kapha has a shadow side too. That shadow side can look like lethargy. It can look like stagnation, resistance, attachment, staying somewhere because it feels familiar and not because it's aligned. And I think that one of the hardest questions we can ask ourselves is, am I actually resting or am I avoiding my life? There is a difference between being rooted and being just afraid to move. There is a difference between patience and continuously postponing the thing you know you are being called toward. And only you can really be honest with yourself about that. So if you recognize yourself in this season, ask, am I genuinely restoring myself? Or am I using comfort to avoid the movement I know is necessary? So, what season are you actually in? I want you to think about your life right now and what energy do you feel like is dominating your life at the moment. I think we miss so much wisdom when we're constantly trying to rush into the next version of ourselves. We want to skip from heartbreak straight to healing and purpose, from confusion straight to clarity, from exhaustion straight back into productivity, from having an idea straight into having a finished product. But if you look around you, nature doesn't do that. Nature doesn't rush itself. It doesn't work in that way. Time to create, there's a time to rest, there is a time to burn something down, there is a time to feel everything, and then there is a time to finally let something go. I think wisdom isn't about being motivated all the time or productive all the time. It's learning to recognize what this moment is asking of you so that you can move on to the next. And the question isn't always, how can I move out of this season? It's, what is this season trying to show me? And what do I need to cultivate to prepare for whatever wants to come next? So after my summer solstice event, I kept thinking about how people were physically able to experience the elements in one night, which was so cool to see. But inevitably, I wanted to go deeper. I thought, what if instead of just experiencing the elements for a few hours, we spent intentional time exploring what each one can reveal about the life that you're living right now? So I created the 5-day elemental challenge. This is essentially a 5-day experience where you'll be working closely with me as we move through earth, air, fire, water, and ether. So before we begin, you would fill out a reflection form so I can understand who you are, what season you are currently in, what's taking up space in your mind and heart, where you feel fulfilled, where you feel stuck, and what you want to receive from our time together. We'll also have a connection call so we can talk more deeply about where you are and what type of support would actually be meaningful for you. And then throughout the 5 days, you'll receive more personalized reflection, guidance, creative and embodied practices, and opportunities to really look at your life through each element and use them to understand yourself more. I want to know you. I want to understand what you're navigating. So basically, the purpose of this experience is to help you understand who you are, recognize the patterns and energies that are currently shaping your current season, and reconnect with the parts of yourself you may have neglected. And just leave with more clarity on what you're being invited into next. This challenge is hosted through my online community, Art and Alchemy. Art and Alchemy is a space for curious minds and creative souls where we come together to explore creativity, spirituality, self-discovery, sensitivity, healing, and what it means, feels, and looks like to create a life that actually feels like your own. So if this video resonated with you and you feel like you are in a transitional season, or you know something is shifting and you can't quite name it yet, I would love to work with you, and I would also love to have you in my online community, Art and Alchemy, which I will link in the description. And even if you don't want to join us, which is completely okay, I would love to leave you with this question. If your current season of life were an element, earth, water, fire, air, or ether, which one would it be? And what do you think it's trying to teach you? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you staying through the video and just being here with me. I am so passionate about building this community of like-minded creatives and individuals. We deserve this space, so I really hope to see you there. Thank you so much. Mwah. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.